All right, welcome back to the Run.down here on the Strickland YouTube channel and now on the Strickland Podcast Network. If you're listening afterwards to the audio only version, welcome. Be sure to tune into post game streams during the season. On YouTube, I am Sam at FBL_Sam on Twitter, and I got with me Jeff, aka Frank Bear 119 over here. And Nick's training camp has been underway for the last couple of days. Um and it has not disappointed in terms of headlines, I will say. I think things really got off to an interesting start when Thibs kind of said that, or not even kind of said, he just basically straight up said that Evan Fournier is the front runner for shooting guard, which to most of the fan base was a huge disappointment, but not a shocker because it's Thibs. And at this point, you know what you're going to get from him. It's just a matter of fact that you're just disappointed that he went that route instead of, being better. But yeah, I mean, that got Knicks Twitter and the whole Knicks fan base kind of like up in arms. A lot of people disagree with his decision to name Evan Fournier the front runner, while some other people are not really taking that word front runner so seriously. But I would say it's Thibs, so that basically means he's penciled in for it. But I mean, Jeff, how did you feel about all of this going on so far?
Um, well, I had an instant negative reaction. I think it's really hard not to. I actually joked about it with someone on Twitter today where they were just like, "Man, I wish Nick's Twitter wasn't like this." And I was like, "Yeah, I wish I wasn't like this either." Like I wish I didn't like just instantly react, especially on the negative side so often. But I mean, our head coach has sort of been gaslighting the fan base for the better part of a year now. Well, no, that's unfair. A little under a year, but still. So immediately your first thought is like, okay, here we go again. Um, but then you read some of the more, I guess rational takes, where they're just like, well, Fournier was the starting shooting guard last year, and he broke the Knicks record for most threes. Of course, he's going to head into training camp as the front runner. That doesn't mean Grimes doesn't have a chance to win it. Tibbs is just saying my starting shooting guard from last season who did that is going to be the front runner. Like, if you believe that, I can't say you're wrong. And I do think Grimes is going to have a chance to win it. So I guess now that I've had some time to digest it, I'm a little bit less upset than I was when I first heard the news. I also just think it's an unnecessary thing to say. Like, he apparently, according to Ian Begley, was saying that, it's going to be clean slate and everybody is going to have a chance to win their jobs. So why would you open a day in saying, yeah, it's just going to be business as usual? Like, I don't understand why you would say that unless you were trying to get a rise out of the fan base. It just seems stupid.
And it seems like he's been trying to do that as of late.
Yeah. I do have thoughts on the decision itself, but what were your thoughts when you heard when you heard the Tibbs quote?
I mean, again, I wasn't shocked. I was just disappointed because I was just like, you don't. First of all, after all the things that we heard regarding Grimes this offseason, whether it be from Summer League and the ESPN reporters constantly saying, Grimes is competing for that starting spot. It made it sound like there was something coming from the organization itself, like there was an edict put forth to blast this out, and maybe that was to garner more trade value. But then when you get to the whole Donovan Mitchell trade saga, it's like Grimes was left out of almost all negotiations. So if this wasn't a media push to get more trade value out of Grimes, and he's not, if he doesn't have a fair shot at at the starting shooting guard spot, then what was all this talk for in summer league for? Like, what was this all for at this point? So for me, it was just more of disappointment because it's like, what the hell was all this for then?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I heard something similar about the Donovan Mitchell trade. I think it was Jeremy Cohen. And he basically said something like, I didn't even want Mitchell, but we heard about it for 2 months and then nothing happened. And it's like, if you had told most of us at the start of free agency, like, hey, we're getting Jalen Brunson, like we're gonna upgrade our team with Jalen Brunson, we're not gonna give up that much. Um, Most of us would have been excited. But then you hear and Isaiah Hartenstein, who's a really good player. Like we didn't give up anything for Hartenstein, and we gave up, Burks, Noel, Kemba, all players we all wanted gone for Jalen Brunson and some second round picks for Jalen Brunson. Like most of us would have been thrilled. And to your point, it's the same thing with Grimes. Like there's a world where most of us would have understood Grimes coming off the bench. But when you hear for 2 months that he's going to be the starter and they don't include him in a Donovan Mitchell trade, seemingly because they value him a lot, it's just disappointing is a really good word. I can't help but agree with you. And then you also have to add in the Tibbs part of it, right? Like it's it sucks to keep going back to him, but when you don't start on a Tibbs team, your minute ceiling is so much lower. I don't really get why people don't get that. Like, I mean, I know we're kind of, because we do this and because, we just love the Knicks, we're watching every game, but it's been 2 years now. So the whole it doesn't matter who starts, it matters who finishes thing is just nonsense. It just is. Like you don't get extra points for scoring in the fourth quarter. I'm not saying all quarters are exactly the same. I agree that close and late situations have a little bit of extra value. But you're more likely to lose a game if your best players are playing 5 to 10 less minutes than they should. Like an exaggerated example would be if you had Michael Jordan on your team and he played 0 minutes the first 3 quarters, but then 12 fourth quarter minutes, that would be suboptimal, even though he's closing the game. Like we can all agree on that. So we all agree that there's a line where minutes in the first 3 quarter matter as much as the fourth quarter minutes, right? Like we all agree with that. And Tibbs pushes that to the highest, like he pushes the envelope more than any coach I've ever seen. Because if you're not starting, I did this on Twitter the other day. Like he did not in the first 30 games when Rose played, he did not like make a substitution in the first 7 minutes of the game more than 3 times. The starters played the first 7 minutes of the first quarter every single time, basically. And so, and the first sub every time was Rose. So you're Quentin Grimes, you're Emmanuel Quickly, you're Obi Toppin. You're not coming in until the 2-3 minute mark of the first and third quarter. That's 18 of the 48 minutes you have a 0% chance of playing. Already you're at 30 minutes, and your path to 30 minutes is playing the last 15 minutes of both halves, which is, not crazy when you play for Tibbs, but it's also just completely unsustainable. You'll die. You need to come in and then come out. That's how basketball works. And so to bring this back to Grimes, I know that was a long rant. I'm sorry, but to bring this back to Grimes, when you understand that Grimes is coming off the bench, it means that he's going to probably play somewhere between 15 and 22 minutes a game, 15 and 24 minutes a game, which is fine for a second year guy who was 25th pick again, or 25th pick.
Mm-hmm.
But to your point, there was an expectation that there would be more. There was more excitement, and it's just disappointing.
Very disappointing. That leads us to Thibs once again having something to say about something that the fans want, but he doesn't like it. I think the biggest thing that has been a focus of discussion between Knicks fans and Knicks media altogether has been um the decision to not play Julius Randle and Obi Toppin more, or just go small in general, but mostly that pairing. A lot of fans requested it last year. I mean, he tried it in the beginning of the year and it worked to a degree. And then he seemed to have never went back to it after Noel and Taj Gibson rejoined the team. But yeah, I mean, he basically came out recently and says, man, he basically said, I don't think that the numbers support basically that they should play together. And fans basically backed out the numbers, which say, Knicks won those minutes with those two, and then he comes back today and says, well, I actually watched the games, and those weren't really, those were blowouts that those numbers are being skewed by. So I mean,
It's such a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, he's acting like there's this third party that dictates the minutes. He's like, well, if they were better, they'd play more together if they work together, but he decides that they're not playing together more. So, like, what is he even talking about? And I say this all the time under Tibbs, even the first season, because once you with that first season, like, I get that the preseason expectations were low, and I give Tibbs all the credit for all the credit in the world for a lot of things he did. But the main reason the Knicks were as good as they were that season was because Julius Randle was as good as he was. Let's be honest there. And once you give Julius Randle that season, you have to optimize around it. And you have to, and I think it's clear that Tibbs didn't do that. And the main point that I made over and over again was, where does this arrogance come from that we're this finished product that only has to do one thing over and over again? Like, we're not, I mean, at least me and you, I don't think, we're not saying play Randall and Obi every game and have that be the only big combination. But we're a middling team, a middling young team. Try different things. There are tons of matchups where Obi and Randall as a front line is more than acceptable. And this idea that it's just untenable, that we need Hartenstein or Mitchell Robinson on the court 100% of the time, because if we just do this one thing all the time, that is our best path to winning as many games as possible. That's preposterous. That's just not a good way of coaching. It just isn't for the short or the long term. Because in the short term, we're basically handing every other team a playbook for what we're going to do, right? Like, we're going to play drop coverage. We're going to have a paint bound center who, I mean, at least Hardenstein can shoot a little bit, but we're going to have a paint bound center for the most part on both 48 minutes. And that's all we're going to do. We're not going to push the ball at the end of games. We're going to do the same thing. Tibbs knows the best way. And if it doesn't work, it's because the players aren't doing it well enough. That's bullshit. Like, I'm sorry, that's bullshit. You have to, it's 2022. This is as smart as NBA teams have ever been. You have to show multiple looks. You have to be willing. And more importantly, you have to play your best players. And if they don't fit this perfect mold that you've created, tough luck. Obi Toppin is one of the team's 6 best players. Playing him 14 to 18 minutes a game because he happens to play the same position as one of your other 6 best players, supposedly. Julius Randle wasn't one of our 6 best players last year. The idea that he was is a joke. But I believe that Randle can. I'm not going to totally doubt that he can, salvage last season somewhat. He's a really talented player. Okay, play them together. What if it helps Randle? What if it helps Randall to have more space and to play next to Obi, who brings energy, who brings passing, who it's not perfect, but don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, right? Like, I don't get what we're doing here.
Yeah, I mean, and I said when I heard the initial quote, because here's the initial quote. Here's from Stefan Bondy. Here's the tweet. Tom Thibodeau didn't sound too eager to use a Julius Randle Obi Toppin lineup. He said they've looked at it in practice and in small doses last season. I think the numbers show it wasn't very effective. You then replied to Bondy saying, could you have the actual numbers ready so the next time this question is asked, you have a follow-up? I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's your job. And you provided the numbers, which were from 2020 to 2021. It was a 39-minute sample with a plus 8.1 net rating. In 21-22, it was 101 minutes with a plus 3.7 net rating. And I mean, yeah, I mean, I said after this, I said Thibs should get fired for that quote, because he's either misinformed or he's informed and he's ignorant, which is probably what it is, the latter of, because I don't think Thibs is, I hope Thibs isn't this stupid to realize
Right.
that because the sample sizes are so small and because of the blowouts, it's because you don't play them enough together. That's why the sample size isn't large enough to qualify for your parameters or whatever it may be. And for that reason, he should be fired. Like, that's that's like misutilizing your talent to like such a grave deal.
And to expand on what other people said on Twitter, even if you adjust the numbers for the blowouts that show that, okay, so they were in their small sample size, in the non-blowout minutes, they were actually a negative. They were still less of a negative than Randall was with Mitch. They were still less of a negative than Randall was with Nerlens Noel. Like, so yeah, it didn't really work that well across a small sample size, but nothing with Randall worked that well. Well, one thing worked with Randall, that was Emmanuel
You
Quickly, but
quickly, yep.
yeah, but he's a backup shooting guard. So I mean, but the point is that you have to view things relatively. Like nothing worked with Randall. And then the other thing is we saw at the end of last season, Obi is clearly more comfortable when he gets a feel for the game. Like anybody who has played sports understands that. You can't just Obi came in for 7 minutes at a time and he spent his whole life playing basketball being one of the best players on his team. And I'm not asking them to like make him like the star, but that's
Mhm.
unrealistic obviously.
Yeah.
But when you've spent your whole life doing one thing, you can't just expect him to come in for short amount of time and just stand in the corner and shoot threes. That's clearly not how Obi Toppin works. Then Randall was out, and he wasn't like the number one option. He wasn't the high usage Julius Randle player, but he got his feet wet into every game. He got a feel for every game. He touched the
Mhm.
ball, he got moving, and clearly he was more comfortable. And it seems so overwhelmingly obvious to me that if he played some minutes with Randall, which just increased the time he was on the court, it would help him, it would help the team, it would help Randall, it would just help everyone. I just don't get how you can be so close-minded to the idea of this.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we'll get to the media in just a minute. So let's get to some questions and comments because we got quite a few rolling in. Here we go from Christopher Vieira. Do you think it's fair to assume that IQ's role will actually be reduced this year? He has played a lot in the fourth quarter, but now Brunson is here, not Elfer Kemba, who were terrible. Yeah, that's my main concern. And a lot of fans are like, well, it's good to have Brunson because, I mean, people are basically justifying Thibs not playing IQ with because Brunson is good. So like that is the mend all do all, as if Brunson cannot play with Emmanuel Quickly, or there cannot be any staggering of any sort. But yeah, I've seen people try to already justify IQ having a diminished role because Brunson is here, and Brunson is like this 25-8 guy or something. And I like Brunson. I'm not trying to diminish Brunson, but people got to be realistic. Brunson probably will have some off nights, and IQ will have it going. And at that point, Thibs should roll with the hot hand, but we know he won't. But to your question, Christopher, I will say I do think his role will be reduced because Derrick Rose is still here. Um, and yeah, Thibs likes Derrick Rose. So
I mean, if you're Quickly, there have been two discussions this from Tibbs, and we'll talk about the other one later, but there have been two quotes already within 2 days by Tibbs. There has been the starting shooting guard conversation, where the conversation is Grimes versus Fournier. And then there was questions about the point guard position. And Thibodeau today said three names. He said Brunson, he said Rose, and he said Deuce McBride. I love Deuce. So we both love Deuce. But if you're Quickly on some level, you got to be looking in the mirror and you're like, what do I have to do? Because Quickly is better than both Fournier and Grimes. Why can't Quickly just be the starting two? Like if we're trying to just put out our best team, Quickly was our best player last year. Quickly has proven he can play off the ball. And how do I know that he can play off the ball? Because Tom Thibodeau is going to have him playing off the ball next to Derrick Rose. He loves him off the ball. He sees he wants to give Quickly some reps with the ball in his hands because we saw at the end of the last year he can do it, but he clearly doesn't view him as a point guard. He views him as a two he views him as a two mostly. So why can't he just start? oh, well, Brunson's undersized, so there would be defensive problems. Well, Quickly has the longest wingspan of the three players. Um, and if you don't want to start Grimes because whatever, he's got his foot's a little hurt, you don't think he's ready yet, start Quickly. There's no argument that Quickly is a better player than Fournier. So your starting lineup has been abysmal for 2 seasons, and Quickly has been a net rating god. Maybe that would infuse some pace, some winning into the starting lineup. How is that not a consideration? What is our analytics department doing over there? How can we sit here and I just don't understand what the goal is, because if the goal is to win games this season, which apparently it is, Emmanuel Quickly should play more. He just should. He's one of your best perimeter defenders. He led the team in net rating like the last 2 seasons, except for Derrick Rose, who is just a freak of nature. I don't get how he's still doing it, but I mean, he's gonna drop off eventually. And if the goal is development, Emmanuel Quickly should play more. So, I mean, I didn't really answer Chris's question because I don't want to address the fact that he's probably just going to play 15 minutes a game. But I just don't get how. I don't understand. I don't understand what they're doing. It's so incredibly stupid to me. And it's so stupid to me that there's a segment of Knicks fans that supports this, that thinks that the Knicks are better short or long term with Quickly playing less. It's baffling to me. I don't understand what they're watching.
Some fans, they defend it by saying, well, you know, in a year or two, Fournier's contract is up. Well, in a year or two, Emmanuel Quickly could decide to sign somewhere else because they'll give him more of an opportunity than New York has ever been willing to.
Yeah.
It's simple as that. And people are like, well, why would he want to leave New York? Well, opportunity arises elsewhere and money trumps all of it. So, like, if someone's going to pay him to give him more of an opportunity, he's going to take it. As much as he loves New York City and he loves being a Knick, he's going to take it. He's been misutilized and, like, for his whole career here.
And
like,
guess what? And guess what? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
mm-hmm.
the front office and the coaching staff might be blowing off these numbers, but you know who isn't blowing off these numbers? His fucking agent. His agent knows how good he is, and his agent is in his ear telling him, "Dude, you're really good. Like, keep this up. You're really good. Somebody is going to understand that you're really good, even if the Knicks don't." And I don't see Quickly as a guy who will demand a trade. Doesn't seem like that type of guy.
Mm-hmm.
But to your point, and I'll toss this back to you, he's going to take his fucking bag and he's going to go. And let's say someone buys low on him, you know, when he becomes a restricted free agent,
like the
and just
Mavs did with Frank.
Right. And but let's just say somebody tossed him a number that the Knicks deem too high. Why would they retain him if Tibbs has proven that he doesn't value him? Why? So, you know, people might say, oh, well, he's a restricted free agent and the Knicks can match anything when he enters restricted free agency. What proof do we have that the Knicks have any interest in retaining him if they won't play him? What? Back to you. I fucking hate this conversation.
and this is what, and I hate to like not get to comments because I really do want to get to comments, but this goes to the larger point of the media and what the hell is their job here if they're not going to do anything of any sort to get any type of answers for anything, any decisions that this team is making. Why has no one ever pulled out any of the numbers that are widely available to all fans, that all fans have access to, that all fans have reference to in terms of Emmanuel Quickly? Why has no reporter stockpiled these stats, regurgitated them to Thibs and say, these are the stats of Emmanuel Quickly. This is where he ranks, all this good stuff. This is his on-off. This is his net rating. This is all this. This is someone that sounds like a really, 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 really great player that should be playing more. Why has he been limited to this short amount of time? No reporter has ever done anything of the sort of at all. It's like they're scared of him. For what reason? Like, I just don't get it. Like, and then they cry about access. This is what you do with your access. You waste your time asking these stupid questions, don't ask any follow-ups, and get nothing but like angry quote tweets from fans. Is that what your job is these days as a journalist? To get angry quote tweets? Is that it? Like, I just don't get it.
I mean, Tommy Beer asked a sweet question today. Good for him. He's
Yeah, someone mentioned it. What did he say? What did he ask?
he asked about Randall. He asked about Randall's defense, and Tibbs gave a non-answer, as Tibbs is wont to do. And then Tommy Beer like had a follow up ready because he expected a bullshit answer and was
Of
like,
course.
no, and was like, are you saying you liked what Randall did? And he still kind of talked around it, but I mean, at least he tried. Like, like that's the most you can do. Like if
You
you
gotta put the pressure on him. He's not used to that type of stuff.
right, if you
The
keep
reporters in
putting
New
him on
York
the
are
spot,
soft on him.
right, and I don't know. I mean, obviously, we don't know the ins and outs of the media situation, so maybe it is just like a friggin' they think if they push it too hard, they won't get the access they want. But what's the point of the access if you're not going to do anything with it? It's a two-way. It's a two-edged
Exactly.
sword.
What journalism has become. Oh my gosh, my journalism professors from my first year of college would hate seeing what New York reporters are doing right now. They'd cry. But I think Christopher Vieira said that Thibs also said that Randall's defense was very good and that Obi is not where he needs to be on defense. He's back to praising Randall again. He learned nothing from last year.
Well, let's take a gander at that because that doesn't seem right to me. That's it. I mean, I'm just curious how much better the Knicks were with Obi on the court than Randall defensively.
And while you
I
get to
bet
that, I
it's
will get to some more comments.
yeah.
Brent says, I'll never forgive Thibs for waiting till game 3 to 4 to bench Peyton. It's crazy. He may have revolutionized defense, but Thibs has let the game pass him by and his evaluation has suffered. Yeah. I mean, all that ice defense stuff is all great and dandy and whatnot, but I mean, you are letting the NBA run circles around you when it comes to every other aspect in terms of creativity with rotations, lineups, plays, offense, like so prehistoric in all those realms. It's insane.
So the 4.3
Oh
per
wait, repeat that.
hundred.
You just froze for a minute.
I'm sorry. The Knicks gave up 111 points, 111.6 points per 100 possessions with Randall on the court, and 104.3 points per 100 possessions when he was off the court. So they were minus 7.3 defensive per 100 defensively with Randall. That was his defensive net.
Yikes. I mean, that doesn't
And
surprise me.
Obi, they gave up 104 points per 100 when he was on, and 111.2 when he was off. So just just the old 14-point difference between when Obi played and Randall played. No big deal. I'm sure it
Shocker.
was.
Complete shocker. I'm sure no one's, no one had that stat ready to have a follow-up for. Of
Yeah,
course
and it
not,
was
because
probably just
the
it
media's
was
not
probably
prepared
just
at all.
it was probably just Obi faced benches, because that's it. That it's 14 points per 100 is difference in quality. Not to
It's
mention, by the way, the whole they face benches thing is bullshit
I
because
hate it.
Tibbs is the only one who does hockey shifts. So while we have 5 bench players on the court, other
The other
teams have
team will
their
have like
starters.
2 starters or 3
Exactly.
starters. They other teams stagger, so it's not always bench lineups. Like for example, against the comeback, the almost comeback in Madison Square Garden versus the Bucks, Emmanuel quickly, Obi Toppin, and them were going toe to toe with Giannis, Drew Holiday. Like these are like NBA champion level players that are on the
Right.
court with them. And
Or the
Emmanuel
Heat
quickly
fourth
is like
quarter.
dancing on the court after hitting threes versus them. Like, come on now, what are we doing? What are we doing? Like, this is
It's
it's so ignorant to say that. It's so ignorant. You sound just as stupid as Dibs does.
that was like the funniest part about when I did this research, like I said, about the Tibbs substitutions. I was telling you about that, about
Mm-hmm.
when, and every game I looked, the other team would like make a sub like 5 minutes into the quarter, like they would already be staggering bench guys in slowly.
Mm-hmm.
And Tibbs was like, nah, I'm rolling with my starters until like the 3 or 4 minute mark. Every single game, it was like clockwork. It was just crazy to see.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, I just wish for like I asked for the bare minimum with creativity for this from this guy, and he can't even deliver on that. Can't even deliver on that. Let me get back to
He's
some
just the ultimate hammer nail coach. Like he just sees a nail and he just freaking hammers away at it. And like that's his he just thinks that if we just keep doing that one thing over and over again, it's been wild. And like, we were saying, like, it stinks. It stinks to do this because I think it's important to point out that we, as like Knicks fans, we owe a lot to this front office and to Tibbs, because when Leon Rose took over and when Tibbs was hired, we were in fucking hell, man. We had nothing. Like, the Knicks had so many bad contracts. That 2019-2020 season was awful. And Tibbs came in and, he established a culture. And Leon Rose came in and this front office came in and they wiped the books. And we don't really have any bad contracts anymore, or at least long. We have all our picks. They've nailed every draft pick. And, say what you want about how much they play, but Quickly and Toppin and Grimes and even RJ to some degree have all gotten better on Tibbs' watch. So, like, we don't sit here and enjoy shitting on Tibbs, but it's just time. It's just if you equate it to the Warriors dynasty, which, I mean, obviously I don't think that the Knicks can be the Warriors dynasty or anything close to it. But if you try to make an analogy, like, Tibbs is Mark Jackson, and the Warriors thanked Mark Jackson, and he did a lot for them. He established a defensive culture. He made guys accountable, and he got them to the playoffs. But when it was time, it was time. And then Steve Kerr came in, and he took the ball and he ran with it. It's time to give somebody else the ball here, somebody who will mix up rotations and, take advantage of the versatility that we have on this team.
Literally
It's
any
long
other
past
coach.
time. Right.
Literally any other coach. Man, I would like. I've said this so many times. I'd kill for like a Ty Lue type of coach. Man, the stuff
Yeah.
that he does with his lineups, I envy that. I envy that. Dirty Dancer says the funny thing is only Thibs would still have Randall in the game in a blowout to give us the limited sample size. Exactly. He is the like Jeff said, self-fulfilling prophecy. He is the reason why we don't have a larger sample size, because of his tactics and his behaviors in terms of coaching, rotations, lineups. Funny thing is, I would say arguing, I would say engaging in some heated discourse with fellow Knicks fans about our coach, and people say, and I had someone say to me that rotations isn't the only thing with coaches, and to my point, to that person's point, I would say yes, but not in this context, because the talent on this team is to a point where coaching decisions, they matter. They matter so much. They matter so much because we don't have the top level talent that other teams in the Eastern Conference have. Like, they just don't.
And our talent is also at a developmental stage where how much they're used and how they're used matters, right? And we have a type of talent that, it might not be top end talent from just a single star standpoint, but we do have a lot of guys who are good at a number of different things. And so the worst possible thing you can do is pigeonhole these guys. Like, telling Emmanuel Quickly that he's just a backup shooting guard is insane. Like, it's just actually insane, because he can guard multiple positions. He can play point guard. He can play shooting guard. And a better team would, or a better coach, I guess, would try to take advantage of that. Not just with Quickly, with everyone. RJ Barrett's played so little shooting guard, so little point power forward, Randall and Obi have played no center, no meaningful center. We can go down the line, and how does Tibbs know that these things wouldn't work better unless he's willing to try them at all? It's just an arrogance. It's just his way, his one way, and he's just going to do it over and over again at the expense of both our short term and our long term. And it's killing the franchise, because if we do another year of this, we're going into, year 4 of Obi and IQ, where we have to make some real contract decisions, and we're hurting their ceiling significantly. Grimes, he's going to be entering year 3. We can't do another year of this thinking we're a title team and thinking that all we have to do is do one thing. and then that's it. No, you have to do more. You have to be willing to throw different looks at different teams. You have to be willing to, on different nights, give certain guys elevated opportunities. That's how franchises work. And for 2 seasons now, we've seen 2 different iterations of 2 teams, but we've largely just seen one thing over and over and over again. Oh, yeah, he benched Kemba. Yeah, okay. Put Alec Burks in, who's basically just, you know, it's the same idea, it's the same principle, you know? And it's just, I could genuinely make the argument. I won't right now, but I could make the argument that Tibbs is the most destructive coach in the league right now to a franchise.
Oh,
And
for
I
sure.
can't, I actually don't think it's close.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, man, training camp is supposed to be such an exciting time for, teams going into a new season. But man, for Knicks fans, I can say, at least for ourselves, this has been the most like un. This has been the most unexcited I've been heading into a season, just because of what the coach is saying, and we know, like, based on what he said so far, it sounds like it's a lot of the same of last year. And like, as it's supposed to be exciting, we got Jalen Brunson, we finally got a point guard. Yippee! I can't bring myself to be that happy. I really can't. I can't, sadly enough. Like, I want to be excited about this season, but it is just so annoying to have a coach that is not going to be creative with the lineups, and how much of a deterrent that's going to be to our success as a team this year.
And the long term, which is even
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, to Christopher's point, it's insane that Cam said he doesn't even really know or been told what he needs to do to get minutes. Shouldn't Thibs like tell him what role he's gonna expect to play? I agree. And I'm not even a Cam fan or fan. But yeah, I mean,
and Tibbs is probably saying like, oh, he's situational. That's like his thing. Situational to him is like if Derrick Rose dies, okay, you move up, like great.
by the way, this is not a hot take, at least not with us here. It's definitely
Yeah.
not a hot take. This was my belief going into this off season. I didn't want to get Brunson because I thought this exact thing. For the audio listeners, it is hot take is that IQ can become a better player than Brunson given the chance to play as a lead ball handler. Totally agree, but we'll never see this reality. I can only imagine it on 2K, which I will do after this. I will trade as many people as I can off the Knicks and give Emmanuel Quickly and RJ Barrett and Obi Toppin free reign. Um,
And that's why, by the way, there are people who blame the front office. And I can't really fault those people because look, the front office's job is to provide talent for their head coach. And I think the front office has done a good job. And you shouldn't have to player proof your roster for your head coach. But you kept this head coach. You know who he is. What's the thing you always say, Sam? If someone tells you who they are,
someone
believe them.
shows you who you are, believe
Right.
them.
Tibbs has showed us who he is. And it's the front office's job to know his strengths and his weaknesses. If you have Derrick Rose on this team, he's going to play, and it's going to hurt the development of guys who share a position with him or are close to him. So if you believe in Quickly like you claim to do, and you know your coach, it's your job to get rid of Derrick Rose. As much as that stinks, as much as we all understand how good Rose has been when he's healthy, Quickly was really freaking good at the end of last season. And he has a step forward to take. And if Derrick Rose is blocking that step forward, even if it costs you a win or two in the regular season, it's your job to make sure that Quickly gets every minute he can. That's Quickly earned that. He just did. And there's no convincing me that the difference between Derrick Rose being the backup point guard and Emmanuel Quickly being the backup point guard is something like 5 wins. That's outrageous, especially when you backhandedly say things like, "Oh well, if Derrick Rose gets hurt, quickly will slide in," as if like there's this expectation that Rose is going to get hurt. Great, if the gap between them is that small, just give the job to Quickly. Thank you, Derrick. That season was special. Go play for a title contender. We want because this team isn't winning a title, so you have to on some level prioritize your long-term ceiling. Now, people always say Tibbs doesn't tank. Tibbs doesn't tank. Okay, that's fine. We can work under that paradigm. But playing Emmanuel Quickly is not tanking. He correlated with winning basketball more than any player on the roster.
Exactly.
It's
A-
not tanking.
and this whole general idea that playing young guys in general, like playing Obi more minutes and Grimes more minutes and Cam somewhat more minutes, is like going to lead to us being like equivalent to last year's Rockets team or something, is insane. Our players are really good.
Right.
And they showed us that in the limited time that they could against bench players like the Miami Heat were at full strength in that game where we came back down 20 in the fourth quarter, led by Emmanuel Quickly, Quentin Grimes, Deuce McBride, Jericho Sims on the court. Like these guys were going toe to toe with Miami Heat. Yes, it was a regular season game. Who cares? But this argument that it was against bench guys immediately gets killed versus in that game playing against
Yeah.
a team that almost went to the NBA finals.
Yeah, and it's not like we're calling for like a young player purge. Asking for Emmanuel Quickly to be the backup point guard is the easiest middle ground of all time. Like we're not saying, oh, we shouldn't have gotten Brunson and Julius Randle should play 0 minutes. Well, maybe you're saying that, but
I
but
definitely
I mean,
am.
but or even Evan Fournier. Take Evan Fournier. We talked about him earlier. You could make the argument that playing Fournier over Grimes is more of a tank than the other way around. But we're not saying bench Fournier for good, but maybe it might help Fournier. Maybe the reason we brought Evan Fournier in is because we wanted someone a little bit better than Reggie Bullock. We wanted someone who could do stuff with the ball in his hands, right? Well, guess what? He's not going to do that next to Jalen Brunson, RJ Barrett, and Julius Randle. He's the fourth option. But if you put Quentin Grimes in the starting lineup, okay, now you bring him off the bench. He's the second or third option off the bench. Maybe it's best for both players. Maybe Tibbs is actually inadvertently tanking by just starting Fournier because he's older.
Yeah.
So you can say Tibbs doesn't tank, but when he makes suboptimal player evaluation decisions, he's inadvertently tanking. It's
Yeah.
not like you just said, playing the young guys is not always akin to tanking. Sometimes it's just the right decision for your short and your long term.
And I think
Playing
Knicks fans have been conditioned because they've seen in the past a lot of times when we went young. I mean, our young talent has been pathetic in the past. That should be the first thing to that point. If you're thinking about Knicks teams of old that have played all younger lineups, or if you're looking around the league and have seen bad teams that have been mostly all young players, look at those young players. Are all those young players as good as our young players? They may have like one player that's like substantially better, like, or they might have the potential to be substantially better, like a Jalen Green or a Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. But like, look at the rest of the team around those guys. Is it that much better than the Knicks supporting pieces? Not really. So like, this idea that our young players are like so garbage that we have to play vets because Thibs has like Jedi mind tricked, as a friend has coined what Thibs has done to this fan base. I mean, it's insane.
Yeah, I couldn't say it better. So yeah, that's just
Let's get back to some of these comments. Kyle Lampasona says, I don't see how we could keep Thibs when we inevitably disappoint the first few months of the season. Well, according to some fans, Jalen Brunson will mask some of these Thibs weaknesses, so the first few months of the season will not be a disappointment, most likely. So
Man, that's another really like just really interesting part about all this to me is the Tibbs defenders say, well, he'll be gone if they underachieve anyways. He tries to win every game, and we'll see yada yada. But I feel like me and you and people who think like us, if Tibbs just had reasonable rotations, we wouldn't care about the results to a certain degree. Like if we went 39, 37, and 45 last season like we did last season, but Quickly and Obi had like reasonable roles, and it didn't take until the last 10 games of the season for them to be more integrated into the rotation. I don't think any of us like Tibbs has a ton of good, as I said earlier. Like yeah, his offense is very rigid and uncreative, but no coach is perfect. I don't think we're in here asking for Ty Lue. So this idea that we have to live or die on the results, on the absolute results, I actually think is doing Tibbs a disservice. Like again, I'm not asking for him to tank, but there is a middle ground here. And I think that if the front office just went to Tibbs and said, we actually think that playing a few of these younger guys, increasing their roles slightly, making their roles more versatile, that might actually help the team. And if it doesn't help the team, then they're growing and that's okay. Like, sure, if they went 18-64 next year, okay, fire him. That's fine. But I just don't think that would happen. And so
yeah,
I think there's a pretty clear middle ground between living and dying on the absolute win-loss results and tanking.
yeah, and I mean, it's all for me. It was all about process. Me early on in last season, I was someone that noticed the Knicks process being bad, especially in games like the Orlando game and the Cleveland game and stuff like that. And I was like, "Ooh, this is gonna be a rough season." Like we started off pretty good, but like the process of how we were getting wins in some of these games and even the losses, I was just like, and some people they called me a pessimist early on, and I was just like, I don't see it. Like we're gonna see soon, like how bad this can really get. And then February hit, and then I was just like, yeah, like it was real bad.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually on the other side of you, I think. And I remember people saying, smarter people than me apparently, including you, when we were like 21-19. We were, if I recall correctly, we were tied with Boston at 22-19. And I remember there were people who said, well, we're dead because we're past the soft part of our schedule. We're about to get killed. And I was thinking, like, man, really? Like, we haven't looked that great, and we're 22-19. Like, all we got to do is play a little better, right? And I was just dead wrong. We just got smoked.
Yeah, I mean, I was saying this stuff in November. In November, I didn't like the way that we were playing because I don't know if it was in November or December, but there was a game against the Houston Rockets where we were struggling
Yeah,
against
we
them
at home.
at home. Alec
Yeah,
Burks had to save us. And I was like, ooh, this is bad.
I remember
This
the
is,
exact.
I was like, this is
Yeah,
not good.
that was a really bad performance. Yeah, I mean,
And then from there, I was just like, if we keep playing games like this, it's going to be a nasty long season.
this is why I sounded like such a pessimistic asshole the other day. I tweeted something like, if if Tibbs keeps this up the way he's talking, I don't see how we can come out of the season with positive feelings. Like I don't see how this season can be a positive if Tibbs remains coach. And the reason that I said that is because it's all about, a range of outcomes, and what is the ceiling for this iteration of the team the way Tibbs wants it? What is it, like 46 wins? The absolute ceiling is like 46 to 50 wins. We get an all-star and that happens so infrequently. So when I say this, people are like, "Oh, you're just scoffing off a 50-win season like it's nothing." Ceilings don't happen very often. If a 50-win season happened, I'll gladly eat my words. I'll fucking, I'll be over the moon if we win friggin' 50 games. That'd be awesome. But it's a ceiling for a reason. And the rest of the time we're just mediocre. We're not we're not asking questions we need to ask. We're not seeing if Obi and Randall can play together. We're not seeing if Quickly can be a starting point guard in this league. We're not seeing if Quentin Grimes can be a starting shooting guard in this league. We're not, handing the reins over to RJ, which I am getting more and more pessimistic that even that's going to happen. Like, with the way Tibbs is buddying up with Randall, with the way Brunson's buddying up with Randall, like, I think we're in for the Brunson Randall show to start this season at least. And again, I'm with you. I love Brunson, but is it worth, third string RJ in the starting lineup? Like, I don't know. How is that in the good in the best nature of this franchise?
Well,
I don't
according
know.
to some folks, Brunson is now part of the young core because he is under like what 26 years old or something. Like
Right.
he is
It's
part of the
nuts.
young core now, so we have to prioritize him as well because he is also a young player. Um, the way some people are able to do the mental gymnastics to justify any decision that this team or that Thibs makes is insane. Is actually quite remarkable. I wish I could do those type of mental gymnastics, but I am someone who is sane and grounded in reality. So I cannot do those things. But credit to you if you can if you can find a way to justify everything that Thibs does, that is stupid. Because he does a lot of stupid stuff and he's been saying a lot of stupid stuff.
Yeah, it'd be
Uh
it'd be it'd be fun to be like overwhelmingly positive about next season.
I
That'd be
can't drink orange and blue Kool-Aid all the time. I just can't.
yeah.
I can't. It's too much. It's too much. Um yeah, I mean, wow. It's
But let's
just
be honest, Sam. First preseason game, we'll find things to be happy about. Like,
I don't
like
know,
we'll
man. I am like so down about this team. Like, it's not even funny. I'm like there'll be like probably like a string of IQ buckets and then he'll get benched, but I'll be happy about the IQ buckets.
God damn
But
it.
then I'll be complaining more. I'll be happy for the IQ buckets for like 5 minutes, but I'll complain about the benching for the rest of the night.
God damn it.
I know he's gonna like take out like IQ for like Svi or something. He's gonna take out like IQ for like Svi Makailu, and I'm gonna be like so pissed. I'm gonna lose it. But yeah, let's get back to some comments. Um, we got let me see what comments we got. Let's see. Christopher Vieira agrees. I am miserable to be honest. We are just running it back with Brunson instead of Kemba and Hartenstein instead of Noel. Yeah, I mean, pretty much. At this point, it is just I mean, those players are better than them, but again, it goes back to the coach who's managing the lineups, and we know how he is with these hockey shifts. There's not gonna be much creativity because I would love to see like some Brunson IQ, a lot of Brunson IQ action, um, some Obi at the five, Hartenstein with like a bunch of like wings around him and like IQ at the point, like weird shit like that. Like that's the type of shit I want to see, man. That's the type of stuff that like Ty Lue would do. Like Ty Lue would have like Terrence Mann out there running point and like Paul George and a whole bunch of other wings out there and stuff like that. Like he'd have like Terrence Mann out there with like Paul George, Batum at the five. He'd have Batum at the five. Who does that? But it'd be working and like no one questions him. But like, see what happens when you take a risk. You find out something like that works, and that's something they always have in their back pocket. Sometimes they'll be like, you know what? Tyler will be like, you know what? Out of nowhere, let me put Batum at the five, and then boom, they go on like a little hot stretch or something, and no one questions that decision because it worked, and that's all you got to do. But yeah, I kind of agree. I agree with this take. I am miserable as well. I'll try to find some positives in that preseason game on Tuesday, which we will be live afterwards for, but it'll be pretty hard to do.
I don't know. I see what he's saying. I'm gonna push back for a little bit here. I see what
mhm,
he's saying. I see what he's saying about it feeling like we're running it back. Um, I mean, because what he said is basically right. It is, but Brunson and Hartenstein against Noel and Kemba is not something to just scoff at. That's a big
yeah,
freaking upgrade. Both of them are.
and I
Um,
acknowledge that as well too.
so look, I mean, only one team can win the championship. I'm gonna play super devil's advocate here because I want people who watch to love this team as much. I mean, at the end of the day, we love this team.
We do.
We
That's
do.
why we
We love this.
criticize
We
it
love
so
this.
much.
We love this team. So I mean, we've got those big upgrades. We won 37 games last season, but we had a neutral net rating. So most the analytics say we should have just been a 500 team. We had a better net rating than both the Bulls and the Pelicans, both of whom made the playoffs. Coming to the season, we can expect natural improvement from what, at least 6 guys who are going to be in the rotation. Grimes is going to be better. Quickly's going to be better. Obi's going to be better. Randall has to be better. He can't be any worse. We're getting an upgrade from the starting point guard spot and the backup center spot. So even if Tibbs is, we're just going to be a better team next season. We have to be.
Have to.
And look, I mean, this is Tibbs's last chance at a head. He's not getting another head coaching job. He really isn't. So look, God bless that man if he's just willing to go down with the ship. If he's just like, fuck you guys, I know best. I'm dying this way. But if he starts to see the writing on the wall, like Sam, if you're right, which I'm not saying you're not right, because me and you agree on most things, but if you're
Mhm.
right about and Chris, the guy who commented, if y'all are right, if Tibbs is smart and he sees the writing on the wall, he will adjust. And just to save himself, And if you look at it that way, if you look at it from just trying to find a positive, there's really only 2 outcomes here, Either you're right and hopefully Tibbs adjusts to that because certain people don't play well and we have to adjust, or you're wrong and we get to watch a good, fun, young basketball team. So I don't know. I do think there are things to look forward to. And I believe in specifically Quickly, but also Grimes and Obi. I just believe in them. And I think they're going to make it tough on Tibbs. I think they're going to say, fine, don't play us, but this is what we're going to do every time we're on the court. We're going to play well. We're going to win the shit out of our minutes. And if you don't play us more, you're going to friggin' hear about it, And
No,
while
he
that might be
definitely will.
frustrating, and me and you will be on here every freaking post game ranting about it, it'll still be fun to watch. It's still way better than the majority of Knicks seasons we've had, the last 20 years.
Watching Emmanuel Mudiay like hit a dagger
Exactly.
on the Bucks in overtime or some shit like that.
Exactly.
We got some pushback on Fournier's side. We got someone defending Fournier in the comments. So we got House Flan. He says Fournier is a better player than Grimes. Let's not get it twisted. He also says based on what, like 40 to 50 games against backups, I like Grimes, but let him grow into a starter. I mean, Grimes is what, first like serious NBA minutes were what, against the defending champs, where he put up 27 points. It hit like what, 6 or 7 threes. I
7 threes. Yeah.
mean, that kind of set the tone for what he can do given the adequate amount of minutes. And like even then, I mean, I could pull up so many games because I remember Quentin Grimes' best game so well. I mean, there's the game against Portland where he got significant run, where they came back and actually beat us, but he was a big part of the reason why we were up so big in the first place. Um,
That's
I
such
mean,
a good
his
recall. We just stopped giving him the ball in the fourth quarter. We just
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. He was a big part of our offense in the first 3 quarters, scoring about like 20 points. There was a game against OKC, another game where we lost that we had a lead in.
Yeah,
He was a,
he had that steal and bucket to put us up
yep,
that when we got yeah.
exactly. Stuff like this. I mean, I could keep going. I could keep going, House Flan. But I mean, I think the tape shows for itself what Grimes can do. I think the numbers say for itself. I mean, Grimes is just as a starter in that starting lineup. We need someone that can defend twos.
Yep.
Fournier can shoot the hell out of the ball. Awesome. Grimes is no slouch as a shooter, but he's also way better as a defender. 6'6", solid build. He put on some muscle this offseason, so it's even better for him as a defender. Like, that's all we're asking for him. We're not asking him to like break the 3-point record for the next season. We're asking him to be a solid 3-and-D guy, which is better what Fournier can do, especially next to Brunson in that backcourt.
And
That's all we want.
that's the main point. I mean, Sam just friggin' nailed it. That's the main point. We can go back and forth between who's better between Fournier and Grimes. I don't want to underrate Fournier because I actually think Knicks fans underrated him a lot last season. I think he's a lot better than Knicks fans think. And I think it's possible that that House Flan is actually right. That Fournier is in a vacuum a better player right now than Quentin Grimes is. But there's two things in play here. The first is what you just said. It's not in a vacuum. It's a very contextualized situation. And the context is you're looking for a shooting guard in between Jalen Brunson, a growing RJ Barrett, and Julius Randle. So Evan Fournier's main advantage at this moment in time is what he can do with the ball in his hands. But as we said earlier, Evan Fournier is not going to have the ball in his hands very much. He is the fourth option on that team. So what you want from your shooting guard is a guy who can take the pressure off of RJ Barrett defensively on the wing and a guy who can shoot. We know Fournier can shoot, but Grimes can shoot too. They per 36, their 3-point shooting was almost identical last season. And Grimes, whatever difference Fournier has in shooting, even if you believe there is one, I'm not convinced there is one, but if you do, that's fine. Grimes more than makes up for that defensively. So contextually, Grimes is already just has to be the best short-term option at shooting guard. And this doesn't even bring into play how much better it is for the Knicks long term. For Quentin Grimes to play 10 more minutes a night. Like House Flan, let's just say Evan Fournier is right now half a win better than Quentin Grimes. I will give you that. I will cede it to you. I don't agree, but let's just say under this paradigm, that's the case. How much better long term is it? How much are they gaining if Quentin Grimes plays 10 more minutes a night? It's just so clearly better for their long term. So you have to weigh both those factors. And then the third thing is, as I alluded to earlier, maybe it's just better for Fournier to come off the bench because maybe we're taking advantage of his full skill set if he's the second or third option off the bench. Maybe we are using the things he does better than Grimes, maybe they're actually better used off the bench. And his weaknesses are less of a vulnerability because he can be less exposed. His defense can be less exposed against other bench players. So to me, and I think to Sam, it's a really easy decision to go with Grimes. I respect you thinking that Fournier in a vacuum is a better player, but I can't get on board with it not being way better for the Knicks, short and long term, to start Grimes.
When talking about players, it's always for me. It's always about context. Like you could be better overall, but like, are you better in this context? Because like that's what matters, especially with the Knicks. Because again, it goes back to my point with this team. There's not a lot of top level talent on this team. It's not one of those teams where you have a clear like I'm gonna put it in 2K terms. You don't have a clear like 90 plus overall player. We have a bunch of 80s. So you need to be creative with all these 80s, 85s, if people can get my drift there. We got a good question from Menno F. Do you think there's some in the front office that share our same thoughts? Feels like there's a very obvious direction this team should go, but I guess Thibs and Leon just don't see it that way. I think there are some people in the front office that share our same thoughts. I mean, I think World Wide West is someone that would like to see the kids play. He is someone that seems to be a big advocate for them. I mean, we know he's a big Emmanuel Quickly fan. He took off his fucking shirt for him. Um, in the pre-draft process. But yeah, I think he's someone that he was someone I think that he was one of the voices that I heard last year was that wanted Thibs gone. Like he was one of the bigger voices that wanted Thibs gone, and I think Walt Perrin would probably want his like these are his gems that he drafted. I think he'd want to see them play, and he'd be able to like feel justified and dignified for picking these guys for this team. But yeah, I think there are some people in the front office that share our same thoughts. It's just a matter of if their voices are loud enough.
Yeah. And it could just be a case. I mean, this could be probably the number one criticism of the front office is there's just too many voices right now. Like there's so many people giving so many different perspectives. And to me, the best franchises have a coaching staff and a front office that are aligned and are self-aware. And I just don't think I think we lack self-awareness huge because I truly think that Leon Rose and Tibbs are going into the season like thinking like, okay, like maybe they don't think they can win a championship, but they are like win, win, win at all costs. And like you really bypass everything else if you're like a championship team. So whether or not they believe we're a championship level roster right now, they're certainly acting like it. Um and I just think that a little bit of humility and the willingness to take a step back so that the franchise can take two steps forward is pretty clearly what's best for the team. And by the way, I say that under the full like it's totally possible that, if made some of the decisions that me and Sam are calling for, the team would just be better in the short term. So, I mean, it's crazy to me. And I do think that there are people in the front office who see it that way. But there's so many voices, and Leon is so aligned with Tibbs that they just can't get through.
And Meno F also says, I know Quick and Obi are good soldiers and don't complain publicly, but don't you think they're probably pissed? They've shown constant improvement, yet the org doesn't want to truly invest in them. And yeah, I mean, I stated earlier, if someone, throws these guys an offer and offers them, more opportunity somewhere else, I know both of them, they love being in New York City. I mean, Obi especially being a New York kid. But if opportunity presents itself where a team is like, "Hey, we can give you more opportunity than the Knicks will ever give you," who says those two aren't running to that opportunity? They're young, they'll be getting paid, and they'll be getting more opportunity. They'll be able to showcase what most Knicks fans have known to be true about them for all this time, that they're really good NBA players. I mean, why not?
Yeah, I mean, I we agree on everything, so I agree with you. Yeah, I agree. Obi kind of gives off God, what's a not fucked up way of saying this? Um like he kind of gives off like a Stockholm syndrome guy, like he just wants to be loved kind of. Like I don't get I just could never see him being frustrated, He's always so happy. And like I feel like if I was him, I would have spent the last 2 years so mad all the time, and he's just always so happy. For Quickly though, I mean that dude gives off like a blue chip, like cocky, I know how good I am vibe, and
I mean,
I
you see
think
it on
we're
the court. This guy hits like the gritty after he hits threes on dudes. Like,
right. I think we're close to a breaking point with him if things don't change. I mean, there's got to be someone in his ear that's like, dude, the team was 14 points better per 100 possessions when you played last season. you were by far the most valuable player in a crappy season, and they turned around and reduced your role. Like, I don't know where you go from that. How do you sit down with him and say, "Hey, Emmanuel, we value you," and why should he believe it? I don't know. I'd be surprised if A, things don't change, B, quickly is still a Nick in 2 seasons. I
And to his point, to your point about the 2 seasons thing, there's a comment that I do want to get to about restricted free agency that someone just posted. Kyle Lamposona says, I feel like this team would be pretty fun if we just got rid of Thibs and Randall. I loved Brunson and Hartenstein in their prior situations. I watched a lot of Clippers games last year due to gambling reasons that I will not disclose. So I did see a lot of Hartenstein, and I did like what I saw from him. And I also follow I follow a good amount of Clippers fans. And they loved, like, they were always bragging about Hartenstein. So I know we got someone good there. Brunson, I mean, we've all seen what Brunson can do at this point. So there's not much to really get into further there. But I think Hartenstein could easily become a fan favorite, I think.
Yeah, especially playing with Obi.
Ooh.
I saw a quote the other day where Obi said, to pass,
Oh
and
wait, you
like,
froze for a minute. Repeat that.
oh, I'm sorry. Hardenstein said the other day, even if you don't expect a pass, expect a pass. Like, he's a great passing big from like the free throw line area when he's like messing with dribble handoffs and stuff. And I mean, Obi's the type of guy who has that elite processing and just he thinks about the
He
game
is
so
going to be
well.
cutting like crazy. Oh my god.
Exactly.
This is the type of stuff I wish I could be like so excited about, but I'm
Just
like,
be
yo,
excited about it,
I just know the coach is gonna mess it up. This is insane.
man.
Cause I watched Hartenstein, like I've watched him play and I watched the highlights too. Some of these passes he's making is like Jokic level passes, and it's like having someone like Obi being on the receiving end of those stuff is just like, oh my gosh.
And you can absolutely see like Hardenstein standing in the middle of the court and Obi like finding a cut backdoor, like finding a backdoor cut or finding a baseline cut. Like, that'll be a staple of the Knicks bench offense. What I'm interested about, to talk some actual basketball. So I know Hardenstein, is a good screener, but from the clips I watched, I watched a decent amount of highlight. He's kind of slow footed,
Yeah, he is.
and I wonder if, because one, he's a spacer, like he's not. I'm not gonna act like he's like Brooke Lopez, but he can stand in the corner. Do you think Tibbs will go away at all from needing the five to screen and let them run some 1-4 screen with Obi and quickly off the bench, or with Rose and Obi, or do you think he'll just stick with the status quo and Hardenstein will set the majority of the screens?
I'd hope it's more Obi. I mean, we've seen what Obi can do in terms of, I mean, not even just pick and rolls now, but like pick and pop if he's continuing on from last season, the end of last
Right.
season, where the 3-point shot was really going for him, where he was attempting like 8 threes a game or something and hitting like plus 40% on them. And I'm not expecting that to continue because that was just like an insane hot stretch. But
Yeah.
if he's shooting like 35% from three, you got to implement some more 1-4 pick and roll, 1-4 pick and pop, mix it up, confuse the defense a little bit, have them on their heels. So like they think it's a 1-4 pick and roll, but then it's like a pick and pop. And then, you could insert some dribble handoffs from there and too. Like so much,
You could
so much things you can do there.
you could also make the argument that in 3 years here, or 2 years so far, but entering his third year, Obi will be operating with the most paint space he's ever operated with because of Hardenstein. Because Hardenstein, I mean, it was Nerlens Noel and Taj Gibson. So
Or yeah, paint mound centers, and they
right,
like hang out in the dunker spot all the time. Except for
exactly.
Taj when he was like spacing when he
Yeah.
magically decided to become a floor spacer.
Did you see yesterday, or maybe it was this afternoon? He hit one from the top of the key.
Oh yeah, they were playing the Warriors this morning.
Yeah,
Yeah, I didn't get to see that, but yeah, I think I saw a clip of that.
yeah.
But yep, Taj the floor spacer. I mean, but yeah, I mean, there's so much things. I mean, and then Obi started to implement this like fake handoff a little bit, where he would like fake handoff and then drive to the paint and like try to get a layup or a dunk, stuff like that. Just want to see more stuff like that. Um, and then, oof, I would love to see like some RJ Obi pick and rolls because RJ's pretty good when he could like when he does that like short pick and roll for a lob with Mitch. So if he could do
Yep.
that with like Obi, oh my gosh, that would be so fun. So many fun things that this team could do with all the different lineup combinations. If I'm not even gonna speak the coach's name
Yeah,
anymore.
something RJ and Quickly have both gotten really good at is when they're driving to their strong hand and they have a shooter in the strong corner, and then Mitch or God, definitely not Nerlens Noel. Jeez, good riddance. But yeah, Mitch, specifically Mitch diving.
Hmm.
They're really good at making that read because it's on there. There's a help defender. The guy, one guy is responsible for deciding between the Mitch diving and the guy standing in the corner. And both RJ and Quickly have gotten really good at manipulating that defender and deciding if they should whip a pass to the corner or throw a lob. You can like picture it, like you can just
Hmm.
picture, both them driving and just reading it. And I know I've hyped up Quickly a lot, but Quickly especially has gotten really good at it. He's just yeah,
I
he's so
think I
good.
think there's
He's
an
so good.
example of this. I think an example of the play that you're talking of the type of play you're talking about is um example of that would probably be late in the season versus the Bulls when IQ went to the paint, drove in, kicked it out to the corner to Alec Burks, a play that Julius Randle was apparently upset about because
Right,
he
because
was
he didn't get the
pouting
ball.
like a baby at the end of that game, even though we won. But yeah, I think that's a perfect example of that play, and I think a lot of people can remember that play because it was like one of the last like one of the lasting highlights of Alec Burks in a Knicks uniform. So yeah, I think a lot of people should remember that. But that's an example of the play Jeff is talking about when Emmanuel quickly drove in, ended that Bulls game, found Alec Burks, whipped it into the corner, hit that three. Yeah,
Yep.
quickly's gotten really good at that pass, and so has RJ.
Yeah, that was cool too because I mean Randall was calling for the ball. I quickly told him to fuck off.
That's why I
Like,
like. This is why I love Emmanuel quickly, yo. He is the type. He is that player that will like. He will be like, yo, screw you, Julius. Like, this is the play that I'm about to do. Like, we about to win this play. We about to score this bucket. Like, if you don't want to be involved, whatever. But like, you can like bitch about it on the side. But yeah, that's why I like Emmanuel
You
quickly.
think Tibbs was mad? Like quickly went away from the play he called too. Like
Probably
Tibbs
for
wanted
sure.
that ball in Randall's hand.
Of course he did, because he wanted to lose. He
Yeah.
deep down inside, Dibs wants to lose. Dibs has been tricking y'all. He likes losing because he does so much to show that he does. Kyle Empesonas asks, what do y'all think about RJ at the four? His strength and slashing could be really useful in a size down lineup. I love the idea of RJ at the four. That is something that I have been clamoring for because I think we saw a little bit of a glimpse of it in a Clippers game when it was a lineup of IQ, Deuce, Cam, RJ, and Sims,
Oh
and
my
they ran the Clippers off the floor with that lineup. They ran them off. They ran them out the gym with that lineup.
All right, now we got to find what because it's something insane. Their number is something insane. Um,
It's
I mean, obviously it's not sustainable, but
of course not, but like that glimpse had like Nick's Twitter like ready to like throw a parade in advance for this lineup. Like that lineup was special. But yeah, I love RJ at the four, and that game is the reason why because that little glimpse that like Thibs like teased us with in that game was just like everything I needed to see at that moment.
it was it was something insane. And I remember the exact game. They went on like a 40-2 run or something
It
preposterous.
was insane. Oh my gosh, what that was one of the rare fun games, like really fun games this past year.
It was such a fun game.
Cause it was like Dibs kind of got a little funky with it, but he had no choice because like players were out, which is like the thing I hate the most about him is that he is forced to do things fun and funky when people are out. But if everyone is available, he will stick to like bare bones and stuff like that. It's so annoying.
Okay, so you ready for this, Sam?
It's insane.
Okay, so there's two lineups. There's two lineups that are just outrageous.
Hmm.
Okay, so quickly Deuce, Obi, Grimes, and Jericho Sims. So, or excuse me, quickly Deuce, Grimes, Obi, and Jericho Sims played 6 minutes, and their net rating is plus 125.2
Oh
for
my
100
gosh.
possessions. And then, but that's probably just pure garbage time. So whatever. But then that stretch you were just talking about, um, the quickly Deuce, Cam, RJ, Jericho from the Clippers game.
Hmm.
Because remember, if you recall, they played the Nuggets the next game, and Tibbs played it again, that lineup again, and it crushed again. Not as hard, but it was really good. I think it was the Nuggets. They played somebody the next game. Pretty sure it was the Nuggets, and it was just really good.
It might
Anyways,
have been the Mavericks.
yeah,
It might
it's
have been the
somebody like
Mavericks
that
because I remember at
because it was on
The
the West
Clippers and
Coast
the
trip.
Mavericks games, they were like right after each other, and we smoked both of those teams.
Yeah, that could be right too. Um, so they played 12 minutes. This is quickly Deuce, Cam, RJ Sims, 12 minutes. And per 100 possessions, they scored 158 points per 100 possessions and allowed 68 points per 100 possessions
Yo, that is insane.
for a plus 90 net rating
Yo,
against. God damn it, that's so good.
that is like, and the thing about that lineup that makes it work so well is because it has shooting, playmaking, and size at every position, whether it be wingspan. So, like defensively, there is no gaps. You got Jericho Sims as the perfect lob threat in the middle. And I think we talked about it too, is that a fun caveat of this lineup would be replacing Sims with Obi and seeing how that would work and how much
Yeah.
more like it,
Or
how much
Mitch.
more crazy that could get. Or Mitch, yes, exactly.
Like
How
Mitch
much
would
more?
be cool.
Yeah, but like for me with Obi, it adds even more passing and connectivity, which
I mean,
like
that offense would be insane.
it would just be like it would be like the ultimate like 2K freestyle lineup.
So we were both wrong. You were closer to being right than me.
Hmm.
Dallas was 2 games after the Clippers game.
Oh, okay.
It was actually at Sacramento.
Sacramento makes more sense. Yes, that does make more
Yeah.
sense. But yeah,
Um,
we those are the three games that I remember we just like smoked teams. But yeah, that makes
yeah,
more
it's
sense. It
crazy.
was the
We
Phoenix
so
game.
the game before it was the Phoenix game when Julius got tossed when we lost by 1.
Yeah,
And we blew it at Phoenix, and then we went at LA, at Sacramento, at Dallas, and absolutely wiped the floor with all 4 of them. And then went at Memphis, and we were up 15 at the end of the third quarter at
and blew it.
Memphis and blew it. God damn
I
it.
I remember these games too well, too well. I remember them way too well.
Yep.
I hate that I can point out like certain moments where I knew the game was over. Like that Phoenix game, as soon as I saw Julius get into it with Cam, I was like, "Ooh, Cam is gonna be the one to kill us tonight." After that,
Yeah.
and lo and behold, it was him. But yeah, I mean, let's get back to some of these more comments. I think these are gonna be the last ones before we close off for tonight because we definitely gonna be back on after that preseason game where we can definitely talk about some more stuff. Um, Dirty Dancer says if MDA was coach, RJ would play the 4. Oh, for sure. If MDA was coach, there'd be definitely a lot more lineup creativity. I mean, this guy played like PJ Tucker at the 5. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, that's insane to me. But yeah. Christopher Vieira
um,
says, "Oh yeah, go ahead."
oh no, I was just gonna say I agree. I think I saw somebody on Twitter today defending Tibbs by saying, well, the Knicks ran D'Antoni out of town and he was creative. But like I could be misremembering, but I remember Knicks fans loving D'Antoni, and the only one who ran him out of town was Melo, right? Like that's what happened, right? Melo didn't like that he embraced Linsanity so much, and Melo made it a thing, and then I feel
I
like there's a lot of Monday morning quarterbacking going on because
I
the
think
team.
so.
You go. Sorry.
I think what happened with D'Antoni was the team was like struggling at that
Mhm.
point. I think it was after Linsanity. The team was struggling. Um, and yeah, it just happened like some random like Monday morning he like resigned or something, or they like mutually agreed to like part ways or something like that.
Mhm.
And then Woodson stepped up, and then boom, the team was like back to normal, whatever, for whatever odd reason. But yeah, it was like some weird point in the season. That season was weird overall because like the Knicks point guard situation was in hell. But yeah, D'Antoni became like, I guess, the scapegoat for that.
I just don't think the fans are the ones who ran him out. I think the fans were
Yeah, the
fine with
fans
it.
didn't have a problem with D'Antoni, to my knowledge, at least. I mean, I was like 10 or 11 at that time, so I don't really remember like most
Must
of
be
like
nice, man.
discourse of the D'Antoni era. But like from what I remember, I don't think fans really called for D'Antoni to be gone. Like most of it was like it was more of like roster construction that was like the issue with fans, because like the big issue that season was point guard. Like Tony Douglas, Iman Shumpert, like that was our point guard rotation. Mike Bibby, like then they had to throw in Jeremy Lin because we were still waiting on Baron Davis's herniated disc to heal. Like that year was insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think the fans ran D'Antoni out. I don't think they really felt that he was at fault for what was going on. As
I agree with Christopher. That's basically what I was saying earlier. I think
this comment right here.
the one before. Oh, I was saying the one before where he said he can be creative with his back against the wall.
Oh yeah,
I think Tibbs will
Dibs.
do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, when he has guys out, that's when he gets really creative with lineups. Weirdly enough.
Weird. Yeah.
Let me see. Yeah, I think we are going to. But yeah, Christopher Vieira says I think he was getting to your point about fans didn't run him out of town. Melo wasn't thrilled about the offense and wanted him out. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I mean the fans. It's funny because the like a lot of the like the easy way to go about a lot of this discourse is always, oh, the fans ran this person out, as if like the media doesn't play a part as well in terms of shaping narratives, storylines, all that good stuff. So
That's a good point.
but again, I don't even want to talk about the media because they are like they're like enemy number 1.5 after like Thibs at this point because of how like they let him get away with so much bullshit. But yeah, I think we're gonna end things off here. Shout out to everyone that tuned in. Shout out to everyone that's listening now in the audio version of this that will hopefully be out. I will do my best to get that out. Make sure y'all tap into all the links in the description. We got links to the site, Patreon, Twitter, and the merch, which Jeff is currently rocking right now. So
Oh
definitely
yeah.
make sure y'all cop that.
Oh, and
I will,
this.
and yep, we got water bottles, we got sweaters, we got shirts, we got all that good stuff. I would make sure to cop myself some. I keep telling myself that, but my dementia keeps kicking in.
I gotta say, this is probably like the coolest thing ever. So it's like stainless steel on the inside. So
Okay.
keep shit cold, and I don't
Super
drink
durable.
coffee. I don't drink coffee, but I'm sure people could put coffee in it if they really wanted to. I don't even know how that stuff works, but apparently coffee can be cold or hot or never
Yeah.
really partaken. But regardless, it's a dope thing that you should invest in if you like that sort of thing.
And our Knicks fan, which if you're tuning into the stream or podcast, you most likely are. But yeah, that does it for us. We will be back October 4th, I believe it is.
It's
That
Tuesday.
on a Tuesday after the Knicks' first preseason game, to talk about all that good stuff that happened in that game. Hopefully, and we'll go from there. Thank y'all for tuning in, and we'll catch y'all next time.